Hi, I'm Lisa Singer. I am the Senior Director Events Editorial at Media Post, and this is Brand Insider BTS, where I get to pull back the curtain on some of the most influential, successful women marketers today. And with me, I have Lauren Thermos, and she is the Senior Director of US and Global Paid Media at e.l.f. Hey, Lauren.
Hi, I can't move too much, otherwise my background moves.
I love the
Hi.
background. It's very elf-ish, I have to say. That kind of psychedelic, cool, trendy kind of thing going on.
It does actually match, but thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to chat.
Yeah, I am too. You came recommended to me. I was just told that you were such an awesome and just amazing woman, marketer, person, all of the above. So
Well,
I'm
that's very kind.
yeah.
Hopefully I can live up to expectations.
Well, I started then following you on social posts and reading what you posted, and you have a side to you that's definitely like it's just it's funny and amusing, and just like say it like it is. Like you don't, it seems like, and I may be wrong, but it sounds like you don't filter yourself too often. Is that true?
Oh, I obviously, make judgment calls. You never want to say anything that's, going to offend anybody, but I do try to be a straight shooter and lead from the truth and make sure that I'm thinking through both sides of anything that I'm saying and that I can, back up what I'm saying. So I do make sure that I do that due diligence before throwing something out there. I want it to be valuable to people that read it versus it just be, word vomit. So there's a little bit of thinking behind it before it goes out.
Oh, well, that's because that is something that you're always told, like you write that email and then it's like, okay, take a step away from it and then look at it again, and that kind of thing. And I do, and as I said, reading your post and reading what you say, it is informative and it is cool. I've never thought of it as hurtful, so I didn't mean to make it sound like that. But
Oh, no, not at all. But it's to the point of your email, I do that sometimes with my tweets. So sometimes I want to say that thing and I'm like, actually, you can reframe it.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
it's definitely, you can kind of go back and maybe add a few. Well, I was thinking, as opposed to do this.
exactly. If
So
I tweeted everything that I thought from the first instance, then I don't think I'd have a job.
right, right. Well, all right. I want to start off with, just because e.l.f. I mean, if people who know e.l.f., if you don't know e.l.f., you guys have been around. It's a lot longer than people think. People almost think of you, because you are always on that cutting edge. So people sort of think of you as this challenger brand, or this brand that's just newly coming out. And you guys have been around, and just you keep evolving as culture evolves. And I think that's amazing that you guys are able to do that. And one of the things that I noticed recently, you are having a lot of partnerships, and like with
Mhm.
Dunkin' Donuts and Chipotle, and you sort of have these um, makeups that go with the Dunkin', like it's inspired by their food, and you are creating things like that. So those kind of partnerships are so cool, because you'd never pair, or you'd never think to pair, a donut place with a makeup brand. So I think that that's really interesting. So I want to ask you about that in terms of partnering up, like with that like-minded, say, disruptor, because I do definitely categorize you as a disruptor. Who would be your partner? Like, what would be your partner for, that would go along with your, maybe it's not exactly, because you want sort of that, balance of, what you need and what someone else needs. But who would you be with?
In terms of who would I pick as an ideal partner?
It could be a person, it could be a company, a brand, like
Because
who.
if I told you, it'd have to kill you. So I can't tell you what's in the works, but I can tell you how we look for partners and trying to find that unexpected combination that we want to partner up with.
Okay.
Because I think that is what's truly unique about e.l.f. is the way in which we boldly disrupt, and we really, we go out there to do the unexpected and find the unexpected. And, every day, we have our ears on the ground across the whole organization. What's happening in social, what do we hear back from our consumers? What are we seeing in all different chat areas? And we are proactively always exploring. I think there's a curious nature within the organization that is fostered and enabled, and we are truly empowered to, find the unexpected. And so these unlikely combinations, when you think about marketing, are the things that stand out and differentiate a brand from everybody else in the crowd. And we do it in a way that, we find, an affinity, there might be an insight, there might be some data, and, there is that overlap between, both brands and what we might be trying to achieve, whether it be sharing audience, building affinity with one another. But this unexpected partnership nature of like how we approach looking for new areas and new opportunities is really part of our DNA. Like conquering new frontiers is at the forefront, and every day I literally am sitting there looking at what about this and what about that, and I wish I could say them, but then I would be giving the secrets away. So my ideal partners are going to be my ideal partners that I want to bring to e.l.f. and see us transcend.
In the next campaign, then I'll find the answer to that.
Exactly.
Well, it's funny also, and just to when you talk about a Dunkin', or I'm from the East Coast, so there'll always be Dunkin' Donuts to me. I'm sorry, but that said, but they are my favorite coffee. They've been around, and you wouldn't consider them a cutting edge kind of, like a e.l.f. is a disruptor. I wouldn't classify Dunkin' Donuts as that. They've just been around a while, and they're just that steady brand that you want to go to. So it almost seems a little bit of a contradiction there. So not to get into what you're doing with e.l.f., because it totally made sense. That campaign was amazing. But for yourself, is there that ideal? And again, just for you personally, not for what you're looking for to do work with, but who's that disruptor brand or disruptor kind of person that would be your pairing? Maybe it's an unlikely pairing, but it works.
Yeah, so firstly on the Duncan piece, I think maybe to the trained eye that has just seen them as a donut store on the corner. When we think about partnerships and we're looking for digital disruptors, and I would give them kudos in that realm, especially if they're they're balancing a brand and franchises, and their app and digital properties are up there. So I think if you're thinking it might not be obvious, but when you go behind the curtain, they do have the DNA and the values that we also marry up to ours. So I think that's how, one of the reasons that they became, one of the partners for e.l.f. And then in terms of partners and who I would partner myself with, it's definitely the likes of Nike and Gucci. Like, honestly, those two brands are iconic brands, and they're iconic brands for a reason. Like, if you think of both of them, and starting with Nike, for example, who would have thought that Nike would have bought an NFT agency, like a digital clothing agency, early this year? All the naysayers would have said they're crazy. Why are you doing that? NFTs are rubbish. But Nike actually looked past the hype, found what was meaningful for them, and now they are the most successful NFT company, I guess you could call them. They've made 185 million in revenue, it's claimed, from their NFT. So they've created this whole other part of their business by taking that leap. And I think what I admire about them is the interconnectivity of everything that they do. So they truly, do the unexpected, but they also connect the dots, make it meaningful, and, bring it all together so it adds value to their consumer. And then on the other side, Gucci, by hands down, is one of my favorite brands of all time. They have created an ecosystem that is so creative and has brought in a whole new generation of consumers to their brand. They've created a really tight-knit community, and they do the unexpected. They partnered with Adidas. They brought to life Stanley Kubrick's every movie scene iconically with Adidas. I just think that in itself is such a spectacle that grabs attention. And then twofold, like us with e.l.f., when we went into gaming, everyone's like, how do you marry makeup and gaming? How do you marry Gucci with gaming? And they're on a similar track to us. Obviously, we have different endeavors within the space, but it's exciting to see them play there. They have their Roblox world with Gucci Garden interconnected in with, their NFT piece. I just think watching them and how they're thriving and, kind of connecting with the community on different touch points makes those two brands the partners that I would love to, kind of be, partner up with, I guess.
That's awesome. No, and I mean, obviously you can't argue with those two brands. They are amazing. You completely understand that.
And they reinvent themselves, and they don't alienate their community. They actually bring more people in. Yeah.
Which I think, as what I sort of said about e.l.f. from the beginning, you guys seem like a young up and coming brand because you continue to reinvent or evolve with what culture is today. And I think that for any longevity in a brand, that's fairly vital.
It's our 18th birthday this year. So we're maturing. It's hard to believe, right?
I remember when I first found one of your shops, I was in LA, and I walked in, I hadn't heard of you guys. This is years ago. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I'm trying on, and then I'm like, wait, are you serious? This is how much it costs? It was I like when I got one of the, they had the little, like, normally I never get like one of those little bags or baskets that they have. I ended up, I'm like, can I have a basket? I just went around and
That's the best part about it is you can try lots of things. That's what I love about it before coming to the brand was the fact that I could actually play. I actually have this game up background because this is my favorite palette that we have. And I've never experimented much with color, but it really has enabled me to do that. So I love that about, what we can provide to our community and like encouraging creative expression.
No,
Yeah.
it totally does. Well, I want to jump back to what you were saying about the brands, the Nikes and the Gucci's, and you kept saying they do the unexpected. So I want to ask you, when have you done like where maybe your friends, family, whoever, you did the unexpected? And what happened? What came of it, or what prompted it?
Well, I think coming to New York is unexpected. I'd never been to New York, and I had decided that to progress in my career, I see the US as a place that is a mecca of marketing and advertising, and I really wanted to extend my career and learnings. And so I remember sitting down with my mum and being like, "Hey, I got to tell you something. I'm going to go move to New York. I don't have a job, but I'm going to try and get one." And she's like, "Okay, we'll see you in 3 months when you don't get one." And, I think that was something that was unexpected. And fast forward, it's 8 years later. And honestly, it's the best decision I've ever made, especially like, how much it kind of nourishes my learning and curiosity. So I think I would bring it to a real life experience.
Yeah, that's awesome. Where is mom?
Back in Australia, in Melbourne.
Okay, great. Well, I'm sure she was kind of this. There was probably that I want her to succeed, but maybe not so much. I know when I first moved to California, I was like, I really wanted to succeed, and I was, doing entertainment news, so of course you have to be in California. But at the same point, I'm like, I really miss my family, and I'm part of me wanted me not to. So
Get you.
I'm sure. Well, so talk about that in terms of expanding your marketing career. When you were first going, graduating and looking at what you thought your future was, where, like, because you've been on the agency side, you've been now brand side. Talk about your path and what you initially saw for yourself, and then where it's come to here.
It's funny because I think about, my career hasn't been linear within the umbrella of marketing, but as I've been reflecting, over the last kind of few months on like, how I've zigged and zagged, I really like worked out where that point was that I like how, it kind of snowballed to where I am today. And it actually started way back in my last year of media studies at high school, where I was in my media class studying 20 years of TV commercials for a Big M brand. Like it was called Big M and it was a chocolate milk brand. And I just remember in that moment, something had dropped in my head and I was like, saw how marketing can impact and shape culture and like how consumers and community come together and how it can reflect a time as reflect a certain era. And that was the moment that I realized that I like want to be like exploring more into psychology and also into marketing, because it's so fascinating to me how like advertising and like all of these things can actually shape the worlds that we're in, and they have like where we are today. And so from there, that kind of mission that I've been on subconsciously, not sat down and written at the time, was to really understand all facets of marketing, because I really truly believe there's no one silver bullet to do that. Like you can't just shape culture with one TikTok ad. Like there's great brands do that, and that takes time and it's over time. So I actually set out on this mission that I didn't know I was on at the time to really learn about all the different sides of it. And that like took me to a full service creative agency, then into a media agency, where I'd always kind of managed to, break out of just what media was and work in an integrated capacity, because I truly did have that view that everything needs to interconnect and you have to understand how it interconnects. And so that's what led me into these more integrated roles. And you fast forward when I get to the US, I landed in a media agency to start, but, being in the ecosystem, like I was working at Revlon and then with Whole Foods, like I just naturally took the similar role where understanding every facet and what we needed to do to kind of, elevate the brands, to connect with the communities was something that I'm just dearly passionate about, and learning how to connect with humans, because you're building memory and structures within that. And it doesn't take one thing, it's multiple, like I mentioned. And then that kind of led me to, the client side, working really closely with Revlon, flipped me into Revlon as the client. And that gave me a whole nother slew of like, different roles to understand and different stakeholders. So I really like have been thinking like, how did I get to this point? It really was this natural curiosity and understanding that it's never one thing. And the more that you understand about how all these things work together, the better marketer you can be. You become more confident in what you're putting forward because you're really thoughtful of how that actually, transcends the business. It's not just about you. It's about how this all connects to the greater mission and the purpose of the brand.
Yeah. Well, and I think what you said, and I mean, probably for any industry, but I think especially marketing, that you were really interested in knowing every aspect. You didn't
Mhm.
just jump in, take your job, and okay, you kept the blinders, that you were focused on what you were doing. You wanted to pull from everything else and learn more. And I mean, someone just starting out in marketing, would that be one of the biggest pieces of advice you could give them, or what else would you say that they really need to incorporate into their work ethic in order to do really well in marketing?
I'm going to give a bit like actually something that I have a few mentees that I've advised to do is like you want to understand the spectrum of marketing, and it can be as simple as just even identifying the types of roles that exist within the marketing organization. And that could be someone that's finishing their final year in undergraduate. Where do you want to land? Like you can assess whether is it a creative agency to start with, understanding what a media agency does, the roles within a brand, being able just to place those and asking within your network, how do you make a campaign? You start to unpack the different types of roles that do exist. And then you compare that back with your personality type. Are you more into numbers over creative? Like then kind of think which entities actually enable that within the person and like match back to personality. So I think it's a literally write it across the board, 1 to 5, the 5 roles, and then you can start to explore whether it be looking at your first jobs, or that if you are in a first year position, you're able to kind of socialize that with your manager. Say, I want to learn about the facets. I think the more you share with like your manager or someone's like the person above you, the more they know that what you're interested in, and so they can help navigate and teach you, or at least share with you things as they happen. I found that to be really useful for myself because people can't read your mind, and kind of mapping it in that way. So you do learn, because when you're in your 20s, you're in a data information phase. You want to take in as much as possible, learn as much as possible, so you feel more confident when you're becoming that more senior person making decisions and recommendations.
Yeah, no, and I think in terms of what you said, then you kind of figure out, hone in on where your skills are, and also what you enjoy the most, because then ultimately you're going to be better at your job. But it's you have to sort of sample everything. I do find interesting. You mentioned working at Revlon, which for many would be, oh, this is an amazing job. Let's, like we're good. Let's just keep it going. But then you started or co-founded Cut the Crap. Okay, which is definitely, as I introduced you, people can probably kind of guess about that a little bit. What prompted? I mean, as I said, you're in this great job, and yet you then do this as a side gig. What prompted all of this?
Well, I think firstly, I have cut the crap. So I think it wasn't like because I was in a job that I was bored and I wanted to do more work and whatnot. I really just think I embody cut the crap. But where it stemmed from, though, was a little bit of disillusion in the marketing world. I think there's so much hype. There was like I would come home each day and be wondering, why is everyone so uncomfortable in the gray? Everyone in marketing was searching for this one silver bullet to like fix everything or to do something. And I was like, we work in marketing. People are volatile. Like, I don't think you're ever going to get that the one-to-one thing like straight off the bat. Like, we do the best we can with the information we have, but variables fundamentally change and people are different every day. So that was one part of like just this bewilderment. And then obviously all of the big kind of press within the industry was proclaiming everything is dead. Everything is dead. It's only Gen Z, like all these really big, platitudes that really meant nothing. And I think that ended up becoming quite frustrating to see. And it was a realization that, what, if I want to go to an event that's interesting and that actually like talks about the fundamentals, promotes critical thinking, and brings people together, then I have to do it myself. And so that's honestly where it came from. And it started with the first event where we had 3 wonderful speakers. And the whole premise was that, bringing people together, like it was like we created an event where you could come on your own and you'd be able to, interact with the different speakers. And the only expectation we had of people was to come with an open mind and a willingness to disagree or to change your mind. So that's kind of where it came from.
Yeah, I mean, it must have been because I think that that is key, that people are interested, that people are willing to listen, even if they're not going to change your mind, that you're open to other people's ideas as opposed to being so closed. You talk to some people, it doesn't matter what you say, even if you're not going to change their mind, they could at least appreciate your thoughts or whatever, or just, but if you're not even open to that, then there's no point. So I love that. I think that must have been, it must be fun to do. And
It
because
is.
I read a lot of your posts, and one of the posts, which this wasn't about
Yeah.
the crap, but I'm thinking in terms of you said something about word to the wise, don't put yourself in handcuffs. Okay, so love that. I think it's a great statement. Um, I'm sure well, we could be talking physically, but literal. We could also be talking.
So don't go to jail, and everyone. It's not great.
So we know that's a good thing. But also, so have you ever done that? Have you ever put yourself in handcuffs? And if you did, how did you get out of them?
Like, I think when I wrote that post is like where I am today. And I think there was a moment when you're younger, inevitably, like when you're starting out in your career, you're only like, you can see, what's in front of you. And then you'll have moments where, or mentors that help you see beyond it. And I think sometimes it comes with confidence. So when I refer to like handcuffs, I was really referring to my own self-limiting beliefs when I was younger. If you like spoke to Lauren that was 21 at an ad agency in Melbourne, I probably said I would never be able to be at a brand. And I have no idea why. And I know I thought that at one point, like, oh, that's just so unattainable. But that was really something that I had put on myself for some reason. But if you are curious and you want to learn and like you want to try different things, you really can do that. Like, you shouldn't restrain yourself. And, you might not feel that you can do something that's outside of your scope at work, but you can create it outside of it. Like, there is no such thing as like being able not to do what it is that you want. You just might have to create that opportunity for yourself. So I really think about it as, opening your mind, and you can do what's possible. If you can think it like, or imagine it, you can do it. I really do believe that. And that's what really drove me to e.l.f. Honestly, I think, I feel very grateful for the role that I have there, because it's in a culture where, they dream big, like we dream big. It's really, really exciting. And I think, not every culture is like that. So where possible, if you can embody your authentic self and know that you can do it, it's just like how and when. I think that makes for, more confident marketers and people in general.
Yeah, well, and you talked about that you weren't confident, as you had that insecurity or whatever you want to call it as a younger age.
Yeah, I'd say that.
That's obviously, especially in marketing, must put a lot of challenges in front of you. How were you able to sort of get past that and sort of get over yourself, get yourself out of those handcuffs, and just I don't know, give yourself confidence or maybe false confidence until you actually had it?
I think so. It's when you're younger, like you're also not in practice, right? So now, like 10 plus years on, I've done the thing multiple times. So I have enough data in my bank to build the confidence of like, I can do that. Like, or I can make an assertion that it's going to maybe, turn into like, what I put forward. So I think it's just knowing that it takes practice. You're going to have some wins, you're going to have some losses, but they're all really important, because you're building up this memory muscle, where you're able to do the things you want to do with conviction. And, even if it doesn't go as planned, and like, we at e.l.f., I think one of the things we, pride ourselves on is like failing fast. It's okay. Learn from it. What can we do better? And then how do we like either do it again in a different way or start something else? So I think it's like taking that mentality. Nothing is ever that bad. I always tell my team that nothing is ever as bad as it seems. Let's just reboot. Let's start again. And I think that mentality really kind of frees you to know that you have room to you move, experiment. We're marketers. Like, we are doing a whole lot of experiments. Once you reframe what it is we're actually doing, and do it with obviously due diligence and, driven with the right insights and information that you have, we're playing in a big sand pit and, trying lots of different things to work out how to best connect with communities.
Yeah, and I think exactly what you said. I mean, you're gonna fail. I mean, you're gonna make mistakes. You're gonna know, and not I'm not talking
Yeah,
particularly, just person in general. You're gonna
exactly.
chances. Some are gonna work, some aren't gonna work, but It's how you pick yourself up and move forward. And I love that you keep that positive, like, that's okay, we're going to still do this, rather than the negative side.
And be accountable too, like own it. Like it's like, this is what, and if you set out what you wanted to, what your thesis is and what you wanted, what you expected to achieve, and it didn't like achieve it, at least then you know what variable, so you can explain it. So I think it's like, if you have that rigor laid out, I think everyone should, feel confident to at least put the proposal forward, if anything at all.
Yeah. Well, I want to ask, because obviously e.l.f. is so about culture, and the last few years, I mean, especially, I mean, obviously it should have been an example of brands stepping up for, things that are happening in today's society, what injustices, maybe for environment protection, whatever it may be, these social issues that we've seen a lot more brands sort of be having a voice for that, sometimes not as authentically as they might be, others very authentically, and it's part of their DNA. But is it a responsibility of a brand to do that? Like for the brands that maybe want to step back, should they rethink that?
I think that, to be a brand today and to have no purpose, I think purpose is just such a fundamental, like it's an important part of any brand's DNA and any of our own purpose, like, our own selves as well. And I think when I look at e.l.f., I see them as a gold star. I think you want to be authentic to yourself. We stand for every eye, lip, face, and paw, and we joke and tree because the environment is really important. So you have to, like, I don't know, the brands do have a responsibility. They are part of culture. If I go back to what I said earlier, like, they almost mimic what's happening in time. And right now, when I think of the climate and where we're at, to have a brand that doesn't actually care about where, the packaging comes from or who's getting paid to create that product, I think that is just like, you know, I'm just shocked that care is not at the forefront for many other brands like that exist, or small manufacturers. But I know that at e.l.f., brand purpose, that is what we built up from, and sustain, like embodying our ethics through sustainability. I don't know if you saw, we just got certified as like fair trade, which means like manufacturing. So like it goes deep. It's not just about like one product under e.l.f. It's like how we actually source our products, how we're actually creating them, making sure that there's all of that is fair and ethical. And then, obviously encouraging self-expression and empowering others. So we really like, hand on heart, live our mission every day internally as a team that we rally around. That we all rally around all these people. They mean, so much to me, like, especially as I think about where I am in my life and what's meaningful to me. It's these things, like we can impact people. We should feel responsible, and we care. We want to make sure we represent everybody. We want to make sure that we see that through, and not just say it and don't do anything. Like you have to walk the talk. So I hope that more brands rally around these things that only make for more confident humans, a better world and a better environment, and, enabling people to be their best. So I do think brands have a responsibility. And I know there's a lot of like backlash that brand purpose is a buzzword. I completely disagree. Like I think brand purpose, whether you decide to share that out or not, you need it internally. Like how do you get your organization to rally around something if there's nothing to rally around? Like you should be wanting to do good in the world that we're living in, and for the people that are going to live in it after us as well.
Well, and I think that as you said, what you're doing with e.l.f., you're not just saying, it's not just lip service. You're actually
Nope.
making efforts to, and it didn't happen. I'm sure you've been feeling this way 2 years ago, but yet you just now signed the act, that to where how you now manufacture your goods and things like that. And what is the exact title that it was?
I like fair trade. I think I've got to get it. Yeah,
But
that's really hard to get fair trade certified.
that's something you had to work towards. So it's like
Exactly.
it's something that there's steps involved. There's
And
baby
we're the
steps.
only beauty brand as well. Like, hopefully that rallies more beauty brands to do it. It's not meant to be a competitive edge. It's like, let's all do good for the world.
Right. And so, but I think that it's being able to take those baby steps, or being able to do it in a way that's comfortable to yourself, to the brand itself, to the infrastructure within, but to do it from internally,
Definitely.
and then to continue moving forward. Then it becomes more authentic as opposed to lip service, which
100%. It has to start within. If you're not acting it internally and then you create an advertisement to say you're doing something, or you jump on a social cause, people can sniff that out in a second, especially the younger generation. Yeah.
no, I agree. Well, I want to, speaking generations, or let's go into time periods, because I want to ask you, if you could live in any time period, what would it be?
Okay, I know which one I'd like to live in. It would be ancient Egypt. And the reason why is I am fascinated by the pyramids and want to be there as a fly on the wall right up until they get like finalized and they got made. Because I think for me, it's an antidote on great things take time. And we all look back on history and no one can still explain how these things were created, these pieces of history that we look up, they're awe-inspiring, and it just makes no sense to our minds how in that time they were able to be created. And so when I think about it, I think about great brands today and like the time it takes to create something iconic. You need time. It doesn't happen overnight. And I really just like kind of see that as a synergy and very core to like how I think about marketing.
I think you would probably be one of the creators of those
I'd
pyramids.
love to be. I hope I have jewels as well.
And they'll entomb you in it, because back then I think you wouldn't be around. Would you be a mummy? Would they do the
I'd
wrapping?
probably get mummy. I'd be mummied. I hope I got painted like they were the fashionistas of the time. So
Mummy, but with the perfect makeup.
exactly. Maybe that's what we're going to start. I'll go back to e.l.f. tomorrow and be like, we need an ancient Egypt edition.
Yes, we do. And just mummies walking around. That could be your promotional.
That'd be unexpected.
Yes, you have a store that do that. We got it.
We're on to something. And then we could just do a tour of the pyramids as an influencer trip. Like we can extend this.
I'm sure that the budget would handle that nicely.
Definitely, just don't tell anyone. Don't tell finance.
Well, I also have to, like I said, I'm always a snoop. I always am like trolling everyone's stuff. And your posts are always so cool. So I've actually been using some of what I'm asking you from your post with other people that they're like, this is the question everyone loves. And
Okay.
I'm always like, I can't take credit. I stole it from, I don't think I say your name, but I just
Deal with it like an artist. That's what we have to do. Can you imagine?
I have to say, I want to ask you, if you could unlearn one thing, what would it be?
I actually wouldn't unlearn anything. I think it's very sliding doors. If you move one thing out, then I wouldn't be where I am today. I honestly think you learn from every experience. And when we were talking about failure earlier, it's like I really grapple with that word because I don't think anything is truly failure. Like I think you learn from the experience. And I think by seeing the lesson in everything, you're radically being responsible and taking accountability and like learning from it and then progressing. So I truly wouldn't unlearn anything that like I'm where I am today. Yeah, I honestly wouldn't.
Wow, it's so funny. I just spoke with Evelyn Roosley, the co-founder of Yumi.
Yeah,
like not in the same, not words, but exactly. You two, in the 1 week, I've had 2 people say I wouldn't unlearn anything. And that's the first time it's happened. So that's amazing.
I love it. We have to be friends.
We'll have to introduce you. But are you obsessed with anything right now? Any guilty pleasures?
So guilty pleasures is indulging myself in all the metaverse hype. And I think people like, I honestly really actually enjoy learning about, this term that has recently come into prominence. I was actually doing some Google Trends, like because I'm a nerd, and just seeing when did this spike in marketing. And 2 years ago, it was flat as anything. It was October 2021 that it went paching. And I'm just really fascinated of like what people are talking about, the different virtual worlds that are being, put under this umbrella heading. And then also like people getting really angry that it exists. I think that's like, why place your breath? It's just, it's a word that means lots of virtual worlds that are connected together. And it's like interesting to see the industry quite torn on something that it's always existed. Yes, it's just been, talked about in a different way. And yes, it's something everybody is doing and participating in. So I'm just really like geeking out on what that means to people now. How does that relate back to e.l.f? Yeah, I think that's where my head's at the moment.
So what would be your virtual world to create your perfect? What would that virtual world look like?
I'd definitely be in space. I would not be underwater. I would be in space. I have a strong affinity for the galaxy and the unknown, and I think we can create whatever we want in there. So I just think I'd be on some planet that would probably just be made up. I'd make it maybe Lauren, what can I call it? Like Loz planet. But I think it would definitely be a digital world on a planet somewhere in space.
Wow, very cool. With the whole.
I could have a yeah.
Would you have to be wearing the whole?
No, I can breathe there. You can if you can imagine it, it can happen. I'll have my e.l.f. rocket in the background. Anything is possible.
Very cool. Well, I love that. And Lauren, thank you so much. This has been awesome. I
Yes.
love getting to know you, and I really appreciate you joining us.
Thanks.
And thank you for
It's been
watching.
fun.
I will, as I always ask, anyone you've recommended, anyone you want to recommend for me to, again, pull back the curtains on, any woman marketer, please let me know. I will do my best. And thank you for watching. And thanks again, Lauren.